Tonight, we are slipping into a side of medieval life that almost never makes it into the stories. Not the battles, the kings, or the grand castles, but something far quieter and far more human. A world where cleanliness was a hope, not a habit, where the morning began with the sour breath of unwashed rooms, where wool never truly dried, and where the smell of smoke and sweat clung to every surface like a second skin. Imagine waking in a straw bed alive with tiny creatures, feeling the cold air brushing your face as you splash a handful of icy water from a wooden bowl. Not enough to feel clean, just enough to remind you that the day has begun. Imagine a tunic so stained with smoke and weather that the fabric itself feels tired. A cottage thick with the smell of cabbage, animals, and something you can't quite name, but is simply life. This was a world where people washed in rivers shared with sheep, where bathhouses were both comfort and scandal, where monks scrubbed in disciplined silence, and where the fear of disease shaped every drop of water touched. And yet, beneath the dirt, beneath the myths, there was resourcefulness, routine, and a quiet dignity. People did what they could, with what little they had, struggling not only to survive, but to stay just clean enough to feel human. Before we set off, if you enjoy these quiet dives into history, please like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely do. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always a small wonder to see this sleepy audience scattered across the map. Now, settle in. The candle is lit, the room is dim, and the night is still. You can almost hear the creak of a wooden beam overhead, the soft rattle of a bucket being carried to the well, and the distant whisper of river water moving beneath a gray sky. Let's drift back into a world of filth and folklore, of fear and survival, and the strange, forgotten rituals that kept medieval people just clean enough to face another day. Part 1. Waking in a world without cleanliness, a persistent, cloying presence, familiar yet always unsettling, roused you from the shallow depths of slumber. It was the air itself, thick and heavy, a complex tapestry of scents that assaulted your nostrils even before your eyelids fluttered open. Before the first prayer, your nose fills with the sour smell of sweat-stiff linens, damp wool, and the breath of people who haven't brushed their teeth in years. This was the inescapable reality of a medieval morning, a profound sensory immersion in pervasive filth, a quiet horror that permeated every breath and defined the brutal realities of personal hygiene. Imagine the rough texture of the straw mattress beneath you, its dried stalks poking and scratching through the worn fabric of your shift. The air inside the cramped, mud-daubed dwelling hung heavy and still, utterly saturated with a unique blend of aromas. The acrid tang of wood smoke, persistent from the banked hearth, clung to every surface, mingling inextricably with the earthy scent of damp, packed earth and the subtle, musky aroma of animal hides from the nearby byre. But dominating all was the pervasive human scent. Your own rough linen tunic, worn for days, perhaps weeks, without thorough washing, felt stiff with dried sweat, its fabric an intimate collection of the day's toils and the night's restless turning. The damp wool of your blanket, thick and coarse, carried a similar pungent aroma, absorbing the collective effluvium of the household. Each garment, each layer, contributed to this inescapable perfume of human presence. Listen to the subtle rustle of your own shift as you shifted, a faint scrape of fabric against skin, a constant, low-level irritation amplified by the pervasive odors. Hear the soft snores and sighs of your family, huddled close in the communal bed, their breathing a rhythmic accompaniment to the quiet morning. See the dim, bruised light filtering through gaps in the shutters, illuminating dust motes dancing in the heavy air, giving form to the invisible odors. This was perhaps the most intimate and aggressive of the morning smells. Without toothbrushes, toothpaste, or any effective means of oral hygiene, medieval mouths were a breeding ground for bacteria. Halitosis was universal, a constant, inescapable aroma that mingled with the other scents, creating a particularly potent, sour tang. Your own mouth, coated and rough, felt perpetually unpleasant, a persistent reminder of its unbrushed state. The subtle tang of decaying food particles, the underlying sourness of stale breath, the metallic taste of unclean teeth. These sensations lingered from the moment of awakening. Swallowing felt thick, unpleasant. To speak, to interact, was to carry this intimate, undeniable aroma into the shared space, a communal burden of poor hygiene. The psychological impact was immense. To begin every day with such an immediate, pervasive assault on the senses eroded mental fortitude, making every task harder, every interaction subtly strained. The constant awareness of bodily odors, of oral unpleasantness, bred a quiet shame, a profound resignation to a reality that offered no true cleanliness, only the ceaseless struggle to manage discomfort. Your family, huddled close, shared this sensory burden. Their clothing, their breath, their very bodies contributed to and absorbed these pervasive smells, making them an intimate, inescapable part of their identity. This was simply how life was lived. Before the first prayer, your nose fills with the sour smell of sweat-stiff linens, damp wool, and the breath of people who haven't brushed their teeth in years. The morning stench was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey into dim cottages, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where every breath was a confrontation with an overwhelming, complex aroma, the breath of people who haven't brushed their teeth in years. Beyond the inescapable morning stench and the pervasive aroma of stale breath, the very bed you rose from harbored its own intimate, horrifying secrets. Bedding full of life was a chilling, inescapable reality. Your straw mattress writhes with fleas, lice, and tiny beetles, an entire ecosystem living where you sleep, transforming a place of supposed rest into a relentless battleground against unseen invaders, and underscoring the brutal realities of hygiene and parasitic infestation in a world utterly devoid of modern sanitation. Imagine the rough texture of the straw mattress beneath you, its dried stalks poking and scratching through the worn fabric of your shift. The air inside the cramped, mud-daubed dwelling hung heavy and still, thick with the earthy scent of damp straw, wood smoke, and the pervasive aromas of the household. But beneath these, a subtle, unsettling current permeated your consciousness, the feeling of countless tiny movements, an invisible world stirring. Your bed, a simple pallet of woven reeds or rough planks, was thickly layered with straw or hay. This bedding, designed to insulate against the cold, damp earth, was also a haven for a vast, bustling ecosystem of parasites and insects. It was a warmth and shelter for them too, drawing them in from the cold, making them constant, unwelcome companions. Listen to the faint, persistent rustle of movement deep within the straw, a dry, whispering sound that spoke of unseen life stirring. Hear the occasional sharp, insistent prickle on your skin, followed by an immediate, involuntary itch. See the dim, bruised light filtering through gaps in the shutters, illuminating dust motes dancing in the heavy air, giving fleeting glimpses of tiny, dark specks that vanished with bewildering speed. Your straw mattress writhes with fleas, lice, and tiny beetles, an entire ecosystem living where you sleep. Fleas, tiny, dark, and incredibly agile, burrowed into the straw, in your coarse woolen clothes, and into the folds of your skin. Their bites, small but numerous, caused incessant itching, often leading to red welts and small infections. Lice, more insidious, lived in your hair, in the seams of your garments, laying their tiny eggs, nits, their relentless crawling causing maddening irritation. And countless tiny beetles, mites, and other insects found refuge in the organic matter of the straw. Feeding on debris, their presence a constant, unsettling knowledge. This was not a sign of poor individual hygiene, but a universal reality for the vast majority of the medieval population. Effective pest control was non-existent. Washing was rudimentary. Replacing straw bedding was arduous and infrequent, allowing these ecosystems to flourish unchecked. The psychological impact was immense. The constant discomfort, the relentless itching, the pervasive knowledge that one's body and bed were perpetually infested. These eroded mental fortitude, making every task harder, every moment of rest a battle. Sleep was shallow, restless, punctuated by frantic scratching, amplifying exhaustion and despair. The presence of these parasites was more than just a nuisance. It was a profound indignity, a constant reminder of their lowly status, their vulnerability to forces beyond their control. It underscored the profound lack of hygiene, the brutal proximity of life and death, and the relentless realities of their existence. Your family, huddled close, shared this grim reality. Their straw beds, like yours, writhed with unseen life, their own struggles with itching and grime, a shared burden, an unspoken understanding of their common lot. Its story, alive in every crawl and bite, whispered of an inescapable reality. Bedding full of life was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey into dim cottages, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive parasites, and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even sleep offered no true escape from the teeming filth. Washing without water. Beyond the restless, infested straw mattresses and the pervasive morning stench, the next ritual of medieval hygiene was a stark testament to scarcity. Washing without water was a profound daily reality. A cold splash from a wooden bowl counts as morning hygiene, and soap is a luxury most peasants rarely see, transforming a fundamental human need into a rudimentary, often unsatisfying performance of cleanliness, and underscoring the brutal realities of a world utterly devoid of modern sanitation and abundant resources. Imagine the air inside the cramped, mud-daubed dwelling, thick with wood smoke, damp earth, and the pervasive aromas of medieval life, now mingled with the sharp tang of cold water and the subtle scent of human presence. The sounds were no longer the frantic rustle of vermin. They included the low murmur of tired voices, the gentle splash of water, and the hushed movements of a family performing their rudimentary ablutions. Candlelit rafters filled with smoke, its haze diffused by the dim morning light. Illuminated faces etched with weariness. For the vast majority of medieval peasants, daily access to clean, warm water in sufficient quantities for thorough washing was an unattainable luxury. Water had to be painstakingly fetched from a communal well or river, often in cold, muddy conditions, and fuel for heating, it was precious. Personal hygiene, therefore, was a minimal, often symbolic act. Listen to the low murmur of tired voices, exchanging hushed greetings, their words thick with sleep and cold. Hear the gentle splash of cold water as a family member dipped their hand into a wooden bowl, its contents icy, perhaps even partially frozen. See the crude wooden bowl, its surface worn smooth by countless hands, containing a small, precious amount of frigid water. A cold splash from a wooden bowl counts as morning hygiene, and soap is a luxury most peasants rarely see. The ritual was simple, swift, and utterly insufficient by modern standards. A small amount of cold water would be splashed onto the face and hands, perhaps rubbed briefly over the eyes, a fleeting gesture of refreshment, and a symbolic removal of the night's grime. This brief contact was all that constituted morning hygiene. Soap, in its modern form, was a rare and expensive commodity, typically reserved for the wealthy or for specific cleansing rituals. Peasant homes might have crude lye soap, harsh and alkaline, but its use was infrequent, typically reserved for laundry or specific medicinal purposes, not for daily personal washing. The lack of soap meant that dirt, grease, and grime accumulated relentlessly on skin and hair. The psychological impact was immense. To begin every day with such an immediate, pervasive assault of cold water and the knowledge of pervasive uncleanness eroded mental fortitude. It bred a profound resignation to a reality that offered no true cleanliness, only the ceaseless struggle to manage discomfort. The skin, perpetually itchy and rough, bore the marks of constant grime. Your family, huddled close, shared this grim reality. Their own rudimentary washing, their acceptance of perpetual uncleanness, was a shared burden, an unspoken understanding of their common lot. The echo of wooden buckets against stone, collecting precious water, resonated through their world. Its story, told in every cold splash, whispered of an unforgiving past. Washing without water was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey into dim cottages, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even water brought discomfort, not cleanliness.
Clothing never truly clean, beyond the cold, rudimentary washes and the pervasive morning stench. The medieval peasant's primary shield against the elements was also an inescapable repository of filth. Clothing never truly clean was a pervasive, chilling reality. Your single wool tunic absorbs smoke, sweat, and rain until it becomes as much armor as cloth, transforming essential garments into a persistent source of irritation, a silent, intimate horror that clung to your skin, defining the brutal realities of hygiene and warmth in a life of ceaseless toil. Imagine the rough texture of the woolen shift against your skin, its fibers coarse and unyielding, chafing perpetually with every movement. A scent, a pungent mixture of unwashed sheep, stale wood smoke, and the subtle temps of human sweat, was deeply ingrained, an inescapable aroma that permeated your very being. These were not clothes of choice, but of raw, unyielding function, meticulously mended and worn until they literally fell apart. Your wardrobe consisted of simple, utilitarian garments, passed down through generations, mended countless times. A long, rough woolen shift or tunic formed the base layer, its thick weave designed to trap air for insulation. Over these, layers of other woolen tunics or a heavy undyed woolen cloak provided essential insulation against the biting cold. These cloths were rarely, if ever, truly clean. Laundry day was an arduous, infrequent task, requiring precious water, harsh lye soap, and immense physical labor, often only undertaken seasonally. Listen to the soft rustle of coarse wool as you moved, the faint scrape of fabric against skin, a constant, lullable irritation. Hear the subtle shifts of your family members as they, too, donned their layers, their movements accompanied by the creak of worn fabric. See the dull, muted colors of the garments, blending into the earthy tones of the hut, their surfaces thick with accumulated dirt, dust, and the indelible stains of daily labor. Candlelit rafters filled with smoke, its haze diffused by the dim morning light. Illuminated garments that seem to absorb the very essence of the home. Your single wool tunic absorbs smoke, sweat, and rain until it becomes as much armor as cloth. The wool, while providing crucial warmth by trapping air, was inherently absorbent. It relentlessly soaked up the pervasive wood smoke from the hearth, imbuing it with a smoky aroma. It absorbed daily sweat from relentless toil, becoming stiff and pungent. And it absorbed rain, its fibers heavy and damp, clinging to the body. This continuous absorption transformed the tunic into a dense, grimy, layered fabric that was less a simple garment and more a protective shell, an armor against the harsh elements. Beneath this armor of grime, parasites, fleas, and lately their relentless bites causing incessant itching, adding another layer of maddening irritation. The accumulated dirt and sweat formed a semi-permanent coating, a second skin, that offered a surprising knit of unhygienic layer of insulation, helping to trap body heat against the cold. The psychological impact was immense. The constant discomfort, the relentless itching, the pervasive smell, these were not merely annoyances. They were profound indignities that eroded mental fortitude, making every task harder, every moment of rest a battle. There was no true cleanliness, only the ceaseless struggle to manage discomfort and ensure enough warmth. Your family, huddled close, shared this grim reality. Their clothing, like yours, bore the marks of constant use and pervasive filth. Their own struggles with itching and grime were a shared burden, an unspoken understanding of their common lot. Its story, woven into every grubby thread, whispered of an inescapable reality. Clothing never truly clean was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey into dim cottages, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean. Forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even clothes were an intimate confrontation with
The odors of daily life, beyond the relentless itch of worn wool and the pervasive grime clinging to skin. The medieval world presented an olfactory landscape that would utterly overwhelm modern sensibilities. The odors of daily life were a constant, defining reality. Every home smells of people, animals, cooked cabbage, burning peat, and something unidentifiable, yet entirely normal, transforming the very air you breathed into a pungent, complex tapestry of medieval aromas, a quiet horror that permeated every breath and defying the brutal realities of urban and rural existence. Imagine the air inside your cramped, mud-daubed dwelling, thick and heavy, laden with a pervasive, aggressive blend of aromas. The delicate perfume of nature was drowned out by the undeniable emanations of human and animal life, decay, and the products of their meager industry. This was the omnipresent aroma of medieval existence, an inescapable reality that clung to your clothes, your hair, your very being. The primary human scent was inescapable, the musk of unwashed bodies, compounded by sweat-stiff clothing worn for days. This mingled with the stale, often sour, breath of people whose teeth remained unbrushed for years, creating a particularly potent and intimate aroma. In the crowded conditions of a single-room hut with multiple family members and often livestock, personal space was a luxury, and so too was clean air. Listen to the distant murmur of the village. It sounds muffled by the pervasive aromas, creating a sense of density in the air itself. Hear the rhythmic creak of wooden floors, the subtle rustle of straw, the gentle breathing of sleeping family members, all underscored by the constant presence of the smells. See the dim, bruised light filtering through gaps in the shutters, illuminating dust motes dancing in the heavy air, giving fleeting form to the invisible odors. Every home smells of people, animals, cooked cabbage, burning peat, and something unidentifiable, yet entirely normal. Animals, often housed in an adjacent byre within the hut for warmth during winter, contributed their musky scent of hides, dung, and urine, a constant backdrop. Cooked cabbage, a cheap and common staple vegetable, boiled endlessly in pottage, released its distinct, often pungent aroma, mingling with other food preparation smells. Burning peat, a common fuel source in areas where wood was scarce, emitted a heavy, earthy, and often acrid smoke, further saturating the air. And then there was something unidentifiable, the underlying scent of pervasive sewage from nearby cesspits or overflowing gutters, the subtle tang of decay from discarded refuse, the generalized aroma of damp earth and persistent uncleanliness, all blended into a complex, accepted norm. The psychological impact was immense. To live perpetually immersed in such an environment where the very air was a constant assault on the senses, eroded mental fortitude, making every task harder, every moment of rest a battle. The constant presence of these aromas underscored the profound lack of hygiene, the brutal proximity of life and death, and the relentless realities of their existence. Yet crucially, for medieval people, this was normal. They adapted, their olfactory senses dulled by constant exposure. Your family, huddled close, shared this sensory burden. Their clothing, their hair, their very bodies absorbed these pervasive smells, making them an intimate, inescapable part of their identity. Its story, told in every pungent breath, whispered of an unforgiving past. The odors of daily life was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey into dim cottages, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where every breath was a confrontation with an overwhelming, complex, yet entirely normal aroma. Part 2. Strange bathing habits, the rare medieval bath, beyond the pervasive odors, and the incessant itch of parasites. The concept of bathing in the Middle Ages bore little resemblance to modern rituals of daily cleanliness. The rare medieval bath was a profound reality. A bath day might come once every few weeks, or not at all during winter, transforming personal hygiene into an infrequent, often communal, and profoundly pragmatic event, underscoring the brutal realities of water scarcity, fuel costs, and prevailing medical beliefs that dictated a life lived in constant, accepted uncleanliness. Imagine the air inside a humble cottage, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, damp earth, and the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by the lingering scent of stale sweat and perhaps a hint of medicinal herbs. The sounds were no longer the distant clamor of the village. They included the soft crackle of a struggling fire, the gentle murmur of a family huddled close, and the rhythmic drip of condensation. Candlelit rafters filled with smoke, its haze diffused by the dim morning light. Illuminated faces etched with weariness. For the vast majority of medieval peasants, daily full-body washing was an impossibility. Water had to be painstakingly fetched from a communal well or river, often in cold, muddy conditions, and fuel for heating it was precious and expensive. Soap, in its modern form, was a rare and costly luxury. Personal hygiene, therefore, was a minimal, often symbolic act prioritized for hands and face, but rarely extending to the entire body. Listen to the low murmur of quiet conversations, their voices hushed, discussing the rigors of the winter, the scarcity of fuel, the persistent cold. Hear the rhythmic crackle of the hearth fire, its warmth struggling against the pervasive chill. See the wooden tub, perhaps brought indoors for the occasion, its simple form awaiting the rare ritual. A bath day might come once every few weeks, or not at all during winter. The idea of a full-body bath was an infrequent event, often coinciding with specific religious festivals or social occasions. In winter, with temperatures plummeting and fuel costs soaring, bathing became an even rarer luxury, almost entirely abandoned for months on end. The risk of chilling the body, of catching a fatal illness after being exposed to cold air, was a profound deterrent. When a bath did occur, it was often a communal affair. The same precious hot water, heated in a cauldron over the hearth, would be used by multiple family members, often starting with the patriarch, then his wife, then the children, each using water that was progressively dirtier and cooler. The wooden tub, brought into the main living space, offered no privacy, turning a personal act into a public spectacle. The psychological impact was immense. The constant state of accepted uncleanliness, the relentless itch from parasites, the pervasive odors, these eroded mental fortitudes, making every task harder, every moment of rest a battle. Yet crucially for medieval people, This was normal. They adapted, their senses dulled by constant exposure. Prevailing medical beliefs also played a role. Many medieval doctors, influenced by ancient humoral theory, believed that hot water opened the pores, making the body susceptible to harmful miasmas and disease. This further discouraged frequent bathing, particularly in cold weather. Its story, told in every infrequent splash, whispered of an unforgiving past. The rare medieval bath was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey into dim cottages, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even bathing was a profound, infrequent luxury. Bathhouses and scandal, beyond the infrequent, communal baths in humble cottages, medieval towns sometimes offered a more elaborate, yet equally morally complex, bathing experience. Bathhouses and scandal were inextricably linked. Public bathhouses offer warm water, gossip, business deals, and sometimes things far more controversial, transforming a communal hygiene facility into a vibrant, often illicit, social hub, underscoring the subtle dance between cleanliness, social interaction, and the pervasive moral anxieties of the age. Imagine the air inside a public bathhouse, thick with the steamy aroma of warm water, scented herbs, and the subtle tang of human presence, mingled with the earthy scent of damp stone. The sounds were no longer the hushed murmurs of a family. They included the low murmur of countless voices, the gentle splash of water, the occasional burst of laughter, and the subtle rustle of cloth. Smoky bathhouses, their warmth a welcome contrast to the cold outside, illuminated a world where hygiene and moral ambiguity intertwined. Public bathhouses, while never as ubiquitous or elaborate as their Roman predecessors, did exist in many medieval towns, particularly in the later Middle Ages. They offered a rare opportunity for a hot bath, a luxury otherwise unattainable for most commoners. They were typically privately owned or managed by guilds, and often became popular social centers. Listen to the low murmur of countless voices, their tones relaxed, unhurried, enjoying the rare luxury of warmth and comfort. Hear the gentle splash of warm water, the contented sighs of bathers, the rhythmic creak of wooden benches. See the steam rising from large, communal tubs, blurring the figures, creating an intimate yet public atmosphere. Public bathhouses offer warm water, gossip, business deals, and sometimes things far more controversial. The warm water, a profound comfort in a cold world, was the primary draw. But bathhouses were also vibrant social hubs. Here, freed from the strictures of daily toil and the constraints of their usual environment, people gathered to relax, to socialize, to exchange news and gossip. Merchants would quietly discuss business deals. Friends would share a drink, but sometimes things far more controversial. The communal nature of the baths, the lack of privacy, and the relaxed atmosphere often led to activities deemed morally dubious by the church. Prostitution was sometimes associated with bathhouses, leading to frequent condemnation from ecclesiastical authorities. Gambling, excessive drinking, and lewd behavior are also common occurrences, turning these places into sites of moral anxiety. The psychological impact was immense. The bathhouse offered a profound physical and psychological release from the hardships of medieval life. The warmth, the communal interaction, the temporary escape from grime provided a vital sense of comfort and well-being. But it also presented a moral dilemma, a constant tension between the desire for cleanliness and the fear of sin. The church, deeply concerned with moral purity, often railed against the excesses of public bathhouses, viewing them as dens of iniquity that led to immorality and disease. This contributed to their eventual decline in popularity, particularly after the Black Death. Its story, whispered in every steamy corner, spoke of moral ambiguity. Bathhouses and scandal were a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through monastic washrooms, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even bathing became a moral and social gamble. Bathing by medieval medicine, beyond the communal revelry and moral ambiguities of public bathhouses. Medieval attitudes towards personal hygiene were profoundly shaped by the prevailing, albeit often flawed, medical theories of the age. Bathing by medieval medicine was a pervasive, chilling reality. Doctors warn that hot water opens the pores, letting in disease, a belief that shaped who bathes and when, transforming a simple act of washing into a perilous gamble with one's health, and underscoring the profound influence of unscientific knowledge on daily life in a world utterly devoid of modern understanding of microbes. Imagine the air inside a cramped, dim hut, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, old herbs, and the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by the sour smell of sickness and fear. The sounds were no longer the gentle splash of bath water. They included the low moans of the afflicted, the hushed murmurs of worried family members, and the solemn voice of the village healer. Smoky bathhouses, their warmth a welcome contrast to the cold outside, illuminated faces etched with weariness, but often wary of cleansing. Medieval medicine was heavily influenced by ancient Greek and Roman humoral theory, which posited that the body's health depended on a balance of four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Illness was caused by an imbalance, and treatments, like bloodletting, aimed to restore this balance. This framework also profoundly shaped their understanding of hygiene. Physicians, both university-trained and village healers, propagated beliefs about the body's vulnerability to external influences. Listen to the low moans of the afflicted, their bodies racked by fever, their skin pale, their breath ragged, their voices hoarse with suffering. Hear the hushed murmurs of the village healer, carefully explaining the perceived dangers of excessive washing, particularly with hot water. See the wooden tub, filled with cold, often murky, water used sparingly, a testament to the pervasive medical advice. Doctors warn that hot water opens the pores, letting in disease, a belief that shapes who bathes and when. Many medieval physicians genuinely believed that hot water, by causing the body's pores to open, allowed harmful humors, miasmas, poisonous corrupted air, or other external contagions to enter the body, thereby causing illness. This theory, though entirely incorrect by modern standards, was widely accepted and profoundly discouraged frequent hot bathing. The very comfort of a warm bath was considered a potential gateway for sickness, a dangerous indulgence that risked one's life. This belief meant that bathing, particularly in colder months, was often abandoned or severely restricted. The risk of catching a fatal illness after opening one's pores to the cold, damp air, or to the perceived poisonous miasma was a profound deterrent. While ritual washing for religious purification, for example, before Mass or certain holy days, still occurred, it was often with cold water, and with a sense of its spiritual rather than hygienic efficacy. The psychological impact on the common person was immense. The constant awareness of these medical warnings, the fear that a simple act of washing could lead to grave illness, created a pervasive tension. It forced individuals to prioritize perceived medical safety over personal cleanliness, reinforcing a life lived in constant accepted uncleanliness. Every decision about washing became a negotiation between custom, comfort, and the terrifying threat of disease. Who bathes and when became a matter of medical and social concern. The sick might be sponge-bathed with vinegar or herbal concoctions, believed to cleanse externally without opening pores. The very wealthy, with access to warmer, more private facilities, might continue to bathe more often, perhaps believing their superior constitution or charms protected them. But for most, a rigorous avoidance of hot water, especially for a full bath, was the safer, medically advised path. Its story, echoing in every hushed medical warning, spoke of misdirected fear. Bathing by medieval medicine was a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through monastic washrooms, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even the doctor's advice led away from cleanliness, and every splash carried immense, unspoken peril. River washing rituals. Beyond the complex medical theories and the infrequent private baths, medieval life, particularly in rural villages, maintained a raw, elemental connection to nature for its cleansing needs. River washing rituals were a pervasive, often communal reality. Men and women washed clothing, bodies, and sheep in the same cold river, depending on the season, transforming a fundamental need into a shared, arduous task, and underscoring the brutal realities of water scarcity, rudimentary hygiene, and the intimate, interwoven lives of humans, animals, and the natural world. Imagine the air, crisp and cold, or perhaps warm and humid, thick with the earthy scent of wet wool, damp linen, and the subtle tang of human presence, mingled with the fresh, clean aroma of flowing river water. The sounds were no longer the low moans of the afflicted. They included the rhythmic slap of wet cloth against stones, the cheerful shouts of children, the low murmur of conversations, and the occasional bleating of sheep. Cold river water reflecting gray skies or shimmering under a pale sun illuminated a scene of ceaseless necessary toil. For medieval peasants, the river or stream that flowed through or near their village was an indispensable lifeline, providing water for drinking, cooking, and crucially, washing. Without piped water or private wells, this communal source was the primary means of all forms of cleansing. Listen to the rhythmic slap of wet cloth against smooth river stones, a constant, pervasive sound that spoke of endless labor. Hear the cheerful shouts of children, splashing in the shallower waters, their laughter echoing across the banks. See the figures of men and women, their arms plunged deep into the frigid, or sometimes warmer, water, their clothes often rolled up, meticulously working to clean garments or tend to animals. Men and women wash clothing, bodies, and sheep in the same cold river, depending on the season. Laundry was an arduous communal task. Women would gather at the riverbank, beating their heavy linen and woolen garments against stones, scrubbing them with harsh lye soap, if available, and rinsing them in the flowing water. This was a physical, back-breaking chore, often performed in groups, accompanied by gossip and shared stories. Bathing, too, often took place in the river, particularly in warmer months. Men and women, often separately and downstream from where drinking water was collected, would immerse themselves in the cold water, a refreshing, if rudimentary, cleanse. In winter, such full immersion would be lethal, limited to quick splashes for face and hands, or sponge baths by the hearth. And crucially, sheep were washed in the same cold river. Before shearing, sheep would be driven into the river and thoroughly washed, removing dirt and grease from their wool. This was a vital process for improving the quality of the fleece. The sight of sheep being washed in the same river where humans bathed and drew water highlighted the profound, unseparated nature of their lives, their animals, and their environment. The timing of these rituals depended heavily on the season. Full bathing and sheep washing were largely confined to the warmer months, when the risk of hypothermia was lower. In winter, all forms of washing became drastically curtailed, limited to what could be done by the hearth with precious warmed water. The psychological impact was immense. The constant exposure to cold water, the arduous labor, the communal nature of the washing, these eroded mental fortitudes, making every task harder, every moment of cleanliness a battle. Yet It fostered a profound connection to nature, a deep understanding of their environment's resources. Its story, whispered in every flowing current, spoke of an unending cycle. River washing rituals were a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through dim cottages, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even the river, their lifeline, was a shared and often unsanitary communal space. Monastic cleanliness, beyond the arduous river washing and the morally ambiguous public bathhouses, medieval society also harbored pockets of heightened, albeit religiously prescribed, cleanliness. Monastic cleanliness was a unique reality. Monks wash more often than peasants, but even they fear that comfort leads to sin, transforming a basic human need into a spiritual tightrope walk, and underscoring the complex interplay between hygiene, piety, and the pervasive anxieties about bodily indulgence that shaped daily life within the strictures of the church. Imagine the air inside a monastic washroom or cloister, cool and still, thick with the subtle scent of old stone, damp linen, and the faint aroma of simple herbs mingled with the pervasive scent of beeswax candles. The sounds were no longer the cheerful shouts of children washing sheep. They included the low murmur of whispered prayers, the gentle splash of water, and the hushed rustle of woolen robes. Cold river water reflecting gray skies, now drawn into communal basins, illuminated faces etched with weariness, but imbued with quiet, profound devotion. Monasteries, with their communal living, their emphasis on order, and their strict rules, like the Rule of St. Benedict, often maintained higher standards of hygiene than the surrounding peasant villages. Access to fresh water was usually more consistent, and their disciplined routines often incorporated more frequent washing rituals. Listen to the low murmur of whispered prayers, recited by monks as they performed their ablutions, their voices hushed, respectful. Hear the gentle splash of water as it was poured from a ewer into a communal basin, lavabo, its cool touch a ritual cleansing. See the rows of monks, their faces serene, their simple robes clean, performing their washing with methodical grace, embodying a disciplined approach to both spiritual and bodily purity. Monks wash more often than peasants, but even they fear that comfort leads to sin. Monastic rules, while encouraging cleanliness, often viewed excessive bathing, particularly with hot water or for pleasure, as a worldly indulgence, a potential pathway to carnal sawing. The focus was on spiritual purity and functional hygiene, rather than comfort or aesthetic appeal. Therefore, while monks would wash their hands and faces daily, particularly before meals and prayers, full-body baths were still infrequent, often dictated by specific rules, for example, once a month or only for medicinal purposes. When baths did occur, they were often communal, in unheated facilities, and approached with a sense of duty rather than pleasure. The fear that comfort leads to sin was pervasive. The austerity of monastic life dictated that any form of bodily indulgence, any pursuit of pleasure, could lead to spiritual laxity and moral corruption. Hot water, rich soaps, fragrant perfumes, these were luxuries to be avoided, temptations that could distract from prayer and contemplation. The cold, humble bath, however uncomfortable, was therefore seen as an act of ascetic discipline, purifying both body and soul. The psychological impact was immense. The constant tension between the need for cleanliness and the fear of sin shaped their attitudes towards hygiene. It fostered a unique blend of practicality and spiritual austerity, transforming a basic human need into a moral battleground. Monks wash more often than peasants, but even they fear that comfort leads to sin. Monastic cleanliness was a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through monastic washrooms, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean. Forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even virtuous washing was a constant negotiation with the perils of bodily pleasure. Part 3. Keeping clean without tools. Tooth cleaning with what? Beyond the infrequent baths and the pervasive grime clinging to bodies and clothes, the medieval approach to oral hygiene presented another stark, often horrifying, reality. Tooth cleaning with what? This was a profound, unaddressed challenge. Chewed twigs, ash, wine, or mint leaves stood in for toothpaste. Cavities remained, transforming a fundamental bodily function into a relentless source of pain, and underscoring the brutal realities of dental health in a world utterly devoid of modern tools or scientific understanding. Imagine the air inside a cramped, dim hut, thick with wood smoke, damp earth, and the pervasive aromas of medieval life, now mingled with the subtle, sickening tang of decay and infection. The sounds were no longer the low murmurs of monastic chants. They included the low whimpers of children, the desperate groans of adults, and the profound, uneasy silence that often accompanied a severe toothache. Herbal scents hanging in cramped rooms, mixed with the pervasive smell of stale breath, offered what little comfort they could. For the vast majority of medieval peasants, the concept of preventative dental care, toothbrushes, toothpaste, regular cleanings, was utterly non-existent. Their diet, largely composed of coarse grains and hard bread, contributed to significant wear and tear on their teeth. Sugar, while scarce, exacerbated decay when consumed. Listen to the low whimpers of a child, clutching their jaw, their small face contorted in agony, unable to eat, unable to sleep. Hear the desperate groans of an adult, their face swollen, their eyes red from sleepless nights, trying to push through the excruciating pain of a toothache. See the gaps in smiles, the blackened stumps of teeth, the visible evidence of chronic decay and infection. A grim reality for almost everyone. Chewed twigs, ash, wine, or mint leaves stand in for toothpaste. Cavities remain. The methods for cleaning teeth were rudimentary and often ineffective. Chewed twigs, their ends frayed into crude brushes, might be used to rub the teeth, offering minimal cleaning. Wood ash, abrasive and alkaline, might be rubbed on the teeth to whiten them, or to remove surface stains, though its effectiveness was limited. Wine, particularly acidic or astringent varieties, was sometimes swished in the mouth, believed to cleanse or freshen the breath. Mint leaves, chewed fresh or dried, offered a fleeting burst of freshness, but did little to address underlying decay. These were not systematic solutions, but desperate, often symbolic attempts at oral hygiene. Cavities remained. Once formed, cavities progressed unchecked, leading to widespread tooth decay, painful abscesses, severe gum infections, and the inevitable loss of teeth. The chronic pain of toothaches was a common, agonizing affliction, often leading to debilitating suffering, inability to eat, and systemic infections that could be lethal. Extraction, a brutal and agonizing process performed by the local blacksmith or barber surgeon with crude pliers, often without anesthetic, was typically the last resort, and itself fraught with immense risk of further infection or complications. The psychological impact was immense. The constant, chronic pain of toothaches, the inability to eat properly, the disfigurement of missing or rotten teeth, these eroded mental fortitudes, making every task harder, every moment of rest a battle. The pervasive discomfort underscored the profound lack of medical knowledge, the brutal realities of their existence. Its story, told in every painful grimace, whispered of an unforgiving past. Tooth cleaning with what? Was a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through smoky bathhouses, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean. Forever tethered to the relentless ache of chronic dental pain and the quiet shame of a world without basic medical care, where every bite was a gamble and every smile a testament to enduring suffering. Hair and the Lice War. Beyond the grim reality of rotting teeth and rudimentary oral hygiene, another, more intimate and persistent horror plagued medieval daily life, demanding constant, arduous battle. Hair and the Lice War was a pervasive, inescapable reality. Combs, oils, and blunt knives fight parasites, though they never truly win, transforming a basic aspect of personal grooming into a relentless, often futile, struggle against unseen invaders, and underscoring the brutal realities of hygiene and parasitic infestation in a world utterly devoid of modern sanitation. Imagine the air inside a cramped, dim hut, thick with wood smoke, damp earth, and the pervasive aromas of medieval life, now mingled with the subtle, musky scent of unwashed hair and the acrid tang of various herbal remedies. The sounds were no longer the low moans of toothaches. They included the constant, frantic scratching, the soft rustle of hair being combed, and the low murmurs of exasperation. Candle-lit rafters filled with smoke, its haze diffused by the dim morning light, illuminated faces etched with weariness and a persistent, low-grade torment. For the vast majority of medieval peasants, thorough hair washing was an infrequent luxury. Water was precious, soap harsh and rare, and the concept of shampoo non-existent. Hair, therefore, became a prime breeding ground for parasites, particularly head lice, which thrived in the warm, unwashed environment, creating a constant source of discomfort and potential disease. Listen to the constant, frantic scratching, a rhythmic, almost unconscious, sound that punctuated the silence of the night and the work of the day, emanating from every member of the family. Hear the soft rustle of hair as it was meticulously combed, the subtle crackle of tiny bodies being dislodged. See the blunt knife, its edge dulled, being used for a grim, meticulous task. Combs, oils, and blunt knives fight parasites, though they never truly win. The primary weapon in the lice war was the comb. Fine-toothed combs, often made of bone, wood, or horn, would be painstakingly drawn through the hair, attempting to dislodge and remove the tiny lice and their eggs, nits. This was a laborious, often painful process, performed with grim determination, but rarely entirely successful. Various oils, such as olive oil or herbal concoctions, like rosemary or lavender oil, might be applied to the hair, believed to suffocate the lice or make it harder for them to cling. Vinegar, acidic and pungent, was sometimes used to loosen nits from the hair shaft. Blunt knives, or even fingernails, would be employed to meticulously scrape off the stubborn, tenacious eggs. One by one, a relentless, often agonizing task. But they never truly win. The constant reinfestation from shared sleeping spaces, from clothing, from close contact with others, meant that the lice war was a perpetual losing battle. Even after hours of painstaking effort, the parasites would quickly return, their relentless bites causing incessant itching, amplifying exhaustion, and denying true rest. The psychological impact was immense. The constant discomfort, the relentless itching, the pervasive knowledge that one's hair was perpetually infested. These were profound indignities that eroded mental fortitude. It bred a quiet shame, a profound resignation to a reality that offered no true cleanliness, only the ceaseless struggle to manage discomfort. The presence of these parasites was more than just a nuisance. It was a constant source of potential disease, as lice could also act as vectors for illnesses like typhus. Their omnipresence underscored the profound lack of hygiene, the brutal proximity of life and death, and the relentless realities of their existence. Its story, alive in every crawl and bite, whispered of an inescapable reality. Hair and the lice war was a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through smoky bathhouses, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive parasites and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even hair became a perpetual battleground. Laundry Day Horror. Beyond the incessant lice war and the grim reality of rotting teeth, the medieval peasant faced another monumental, often horrifying, task in their ceaseless struggle against pervasive filth. Laundry Day Horror was a profound, arduous reality, boiling linens, crushing dirt with bare feet, and scrubbing stains with sand or urine, transforming a mundane chore into an exhausting, physically punishing ordeal, and underscoring the brutal realities of cleaning in a world utterly devoid of modern tools or effective detergents. Imagine the air outside the humble cottage, crisp and cold, thick with the earthy scent of wet linen, boiling lye soap, and the pervasive aroma of wood smoke, mingled with the subtle tang of human effort. The sounds were no longer the low moans of the sick. They included the rhythmic thud of a fulling mill, if available, the slosh of boiling water, the forceful rub of fabric against stone, and the low murmurs of tired women. Cold river water, reflecting gray skies, illuminated faces etched with weariness and grim determination. For medieval peasants, clothes were precious and few. A family might possess only 1 or 2 sets of woolen tunics and linen shifts, worn for weeks or months at a time. Laundry Day, therefore, was an infrequent monumental event, typically undertaken only seasonally, when weather conditions were favorable, usually warmer months, and communal resources like a stream or washhouse were available. Listen to the rhythmic thud of boiling linens, stirred with long wooden poles, bubbling in a massive cauldron over an open fire. Hear the slosh of cold river water, the forceful rub of coarse fabric against rough stones, the low murmurs of women, their voices hushed by the arduous labor. See the bare feet, calloused and chapped, rhythmically treading piles of wet linen, their movements heavy and deliberate. Boiling linens, crushing dirt with bare feet, and scrubbing stains with sand or urine. The process was brutal. White linens, precious for inner garments, would be boiled in large cauldrons with lye soap, a harsh alkaline made from wood ash and animal fat, or sometimes with urine, whose ammonia content acted as a powerful cleansing agent. This not only cleaned, but also bleached the fabric. Woolen garments too delicate for boiling would be washed in cold river water. The cloth would be laid out on flat stones and beaten with wooden paddles, or trodden under bare feet, a process called fulling, to crush out the dirt and felt the wool. Stubborn stains would be scrubbed with abrasive sand or, again, with urine, believed to have potent cleansing properties. This was backbreaking work, performed in cold water for hours on end, by women whose hands would become raw and chapped. The psychological impact was immense. The sheer physical exertion, the pervasive dampness, the biting cold. Even in warmer months, river water was cold. The constant exposure to harsh lye and foul-smelling urine, these eroded mental fortitudes. It bred a profound resignation to a reality that offered no easy solutions for cleanliness, only the ceaseless struggle against grime. Your family, huddled close, shared this grim reality. Their own rudimentary washing, their acceptance of perpetual uncleanness, was a shared burden, an unspoken understanding of their common lot. The echo of wooden buckets against stone, collecting precious water, resonated through their world. Its story, told in every scrub and thud, whispered of unending toil. Laundry Day Horror was a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through smoky bathhouses, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even cleansing was a physically punishing ordeal. The medieval perfume cloud, beyond the rigorous scrubbing of Laundry Day and the constant battle against lice, the medieval world grappled with an omnipresent challenge. the pervasive aroma of human bodies living in close quarters without modern hygiene. The medieval perfume cloud was a profound reality. Herbs, flowers, and smoke masked body odors, becoming a form of hygiene in their own right, transforming natural scents into a carefully constructed, if sometimes overwhelming, olfactory environment, and underscoring the ingenious ways people sought to manage their pervasive uncleanliness. Imagine the air inside a cramped, dim hut, thick with the earthy scent of damp straw, stale breath, and the pervasive aromas of medieval life, now mingled with the pungent fragrance of dried herbs and the acrid tang of wood smoke. The sounds were no longer the rhythmic thud of fulling mills. They included the low murmur of conversation, the rustle of clothes, and the gentle crackle of a struggling fire. Herbal scents hanging in cramped rooms, mixed with the pervasive smell of stale sweat, became the defining aroma of the home. For the vast majority of medieval people, who rarely bathed thoroughly and whose clothes were never truly clean, body odor was a constant, undeniable reality. In an age without deodorants, sophisticated soaps, or frequent changes of fresh clothing, living in close proximity meant perpetually existing within a complex cloud of human scent. Listen to the low murmur of quiet conversation, their voices muffled by the pervasive aromas. Hear the soft rustle of clothes as people shifted, their movements stirring up the ingrained smells. See the small bundles of dried herbs, lavender, rosemary, mint hanging from rafters, tucked into clothing or scattered on the floor, their presence a deliberate attempt to counteract the underlying odors. Herbs, flowers, and smoke masked body odors, becoming a form of hygiene in their own right. The most common strategy was to layer stronger, more pleasant aromas over the less desirable ones. Herbs, both fresh and dried, were used extensively. Lavender, rosemary, mint, sage, and thyme would be gathered, dried, and then scattered on floors, stuffed into sachets worn on the body, or burned to release their fragrant smoke. Flowers, too, particularly fragrant varieties, would be used when in season, placed in homes, or carried on the person. And wood smoke, the ubiquitous aroma of medieval life, itself served a dual purpose. While irritating, its strong acrid tang often masked other less pleasant smells, creating a generalized smoky atmosphere that became the accepted norm. The wealthy, of course, had access to more sophisticated perfumes, distilled from exotic plants and spices, applied to their bodies and clothing. But even for them, these were often layered over underlying, rather than absent, body odors. For all social classes, the concept was generally one of masking, not eliminating, the pervasive scent of human uncleanliness. The psychological impact was immense. The constant awareness of bodily odors, both one's own and others, shaped social interactions. It created a different, less sensitive olfactory baseline for medieval people. Yet, the deliberate attempt to mask these smells, to create a more pleasant atmosphere, speaks to an underlying human desire for refinement, for beauty, even amidst profound challenges. This perfume cloud was a form of hygiene in its own right, a complex, adaptive strategy for living in a world without modern sanitation, transforming the ubiquitous presence of human and animal scents into a carefully managed olfactory environment. Its story, told in every fragrant whiff, whispered of an unending attempt at refinement. The medieval perfume cloud was a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through smoky bathhouses, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even scents were carefully managed. Shoes, socks, and filthy feet. Imagine the air inside a cramped, dim hut, thick with wood smoke, damp earth, and the pervasive aromas of medieval life, now mingled with the subtle, earthy tang of unwashed feet and worn leather. The sounds were no longer the rhythmic grind of herbs. They included the soft rustle of straw, the gentle breathing of a family, and the low murmurs of discomfort. Herbal scents hanging in cramped rooms, mixed with the pervasive smell of stale sweat, offered what little comfort they could. For medieval peasants, footwear was crucial. Crude leather shoes, wooden clogs, or simple wraps protected their feet from the rough ground, the mud, and the cold. Socks, if worn, were typically made of wool, providing an extra layer of warmth and cushioning. But these protective layers, constantly exposed to dirt, damp, and sweat, often contributed to significant problems. Listen to the soft rustle of straw as weary feet shifted, seeking a fleeting moment of relief. Hear the low murmurs of discomfort from tired bodies, their feet perhaps swollen, aching, or raw. See the coarse woolen socks, often stiff with dried mud and sweat, pulled off to reveal skin that was chapped, calloused, and often cracked. Feet are washed more than bodies, because cracked skin can mean infection or death. While full-body bathing was rare, the washing of feet was a far more common, often daily, ritual, particularly after a long day in the fields. This seemingly minor detail was a profound, pragmatic adaptation to a brutal reality. The feet, constantly exposed to dirt, dampness, and physical trauma, were a gateway for infection. Cracked skin, open sores, or blisters on the feet, caused by constant walking in ill-fitting shoes or exposure to the elements, were not just painful. They were dangerously vulnerable. In a world without antibiotics, even a small cut could quickly become infected, leading to debilitating cellulitis, abscesses, or, in severe cases, sepsis, which could be lethal. The fear of infection, of a minor wound turning fatal, drove the meticulous, if rudimentary, care of their feet. Water, often cold and from a communal source, would be used to wash the feet, scrubbing away dirt, checking for cuts or sores. Herbal poultices or salves might be applied to cracked skin or blisters. This was a direct, practical response to a known danger, a vital act of preventative medicine in an age of profound medical ignorance. The psychological impact was immense. The constant awareness of this vulnerability, the knowledge that a seemingly innocuous wound on the foot could lead to severe illness or death, underscored the precariousness of their existence. It transformed a basic bodily part into a critical point of defense, demanding ceaseless vigilance. Your family, huddled close, shared this grim reality. Their own feet, like yours, bore the marks of constant toil and perpetual vulnerability. Their own rituals of foot washing were a shared burden, an unspoken understanding of their common lot. Its story, etched in every cracked heel, whispered of constant peril. Shoes, socks, and filthy feet was a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through smoky bathhouses, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean. Forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even a simple foot wound carried immense, unspoken peril. Part 4. Dirt, Disease, and Danger. The Fear of Water. The fear of water was a chilling, pervasive reality. Many believed disease swims in warm baths, hiding in steam and moisture, transforming a natural element into a perceived source of lethal contagion, and underscoring the profound influence of flawed medical theories on daily life in a world utterly devoid of modern understanding of microbes. Imagine the air inside a cramped, dim hut, thick with wood smoke, old herbs, and the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by the sour smell of sickness and fear. The sounds were no longer the gentle splash of bathwater. They included the low moans of the afflicted, the hushed murmurs of worried family members, and the solemn voice of the village healer. Smoky bathhouses, their warmth a welcome contrast to the cold outside, now stood empty, haunted by the memory of pleasure turned to peril. Medieval medicine was heavily influenced by ancient Greek and Roman humoral theory. which posited that the body's health depended on a balance of four humors. Illness was caused by an imbalance, and treatments aimed to restore this. This framework profoundly shaped their understanding of hygiene, particularly the dangers associated with water. Listen to the low moans of the afflicted, their bodies racked by fever, their skin pale, their breath ragged, their voices hoarse with suffering. Hear the hushed murmurs of the village healer, carefully explaining the perceived dangers of excessive washing, particularly with hot water. See the wooden tub, filled with cold, often murky, water, used sparingly, a testament to the pervasive medical advice. Many believe disease swims in warm baths, hiding in steam and moisture. This was the core of the medical belief. Medieval physicians, influenced by humoral theory and anecdotal observations, genuinely believed that hot water, by opening the body's pores, allowed harmful humors, miasmas, poisonous corrupted air, or other external contagions to enter the body, thereby causing illness. Steam and moisture, found in bathhouses, were seen as conduits for these invisible, noxious agents. This belief meant that bathing, particularly hot, communal bathing, was increasingly discouraged and eventually fell out of favor, especially after the devastating impact of the Black Death. The very comfort of a warm bath was considered a potential gateway for sickness, a dangerous indulgence that risked one's life. The psychological impact on the common person was immense. The constant awareness of these medical warnings, the fear that a simple act of washing could lead to grave illness, created a pervasive tension. It forced individuals to prioritize perceived medical safety over personal cleanliness, reinforcing a life lived in constant, accepted uncleanliness. Every decision about washing became a negotiation between custom, comfort, and the terrifying threat of disease. This flawed medical theory had profound, long-lasting consequences for public health. The decline of public bathhouses, which had offered a degree of communal hygiene, ironically contributed to the spread of disease, as people became even less clean. The fear of water, however misguided, ultimately led to a less hygienic society. The fear of water was a pervasive, fundamental reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through monastic washrooms, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even the doctor's advice led away from cleanliness, and every splash carried immense, unspoken peril. The plague and its lessons. The plague and its lessons were a cataclysmic, pervasive reality. When the Black Death arrives, so do masks stuffed with herbs and a new obsession with fumigating clothes, transforming a world of profound ignorance into a desperate, often bizarre, search for effective hygiene, and underscoring the relentless human struggle to comprehend and defy an invisible, merciless killer. Imagine the air, thick with the pervasive stench of fear, stale air, and the subtle, sickening aroma of disease, now mingled with the pungent, cloying scent of strong herbs and acrid smoke. The sounds were no longer the low moans of the afflicted. They included the constant, mournful toll of church bells, the hushed whispers of terror, and the eerie silence of deserted streets. Fog rolling through deserted towns intensified the chilling atmosphere, shrouding desperate measures in a veil of dread. The Black Death, arriving in Europe in 1347, was an unprecedented catastrophe, claiming perhaps a third to half of the continent's population. It revealed, with brutal clarity, the devastating consequences of rampant disease in an age utterly devoid of modern medical understanding or effective sanitation. The conventional wisdom of medieval hygiene proved utterly powerless. Listen to the constant, mournful toll of church bells, its sound now infused with a profound despair, marking countless lives extinguished. Hear the hushed whispers of terror, traveling like wildfire through the town, as news of fresh deaths spread, confirming the return of the invisible killer. See the deserted streets, the empty market, the shuttered homes, Now bathed in a pale, tentative sunlight, their silent presence a haunting testament to the devastation. When the Black Death arrives, so do masks stuffed with herbs, and a new obsession with fumigating clothes. In a desperate attempt to fight the plague, which was believed to be spread by miasma, poisonous corrupted air, people resorted to extreme measures. Plague doctors adopted grotesque masks with long, bird-like beaks, stuffed with strong-smelling aromatic herbs like juniper berries, mint, and rosemary, believing these would filter the bad air. A new obsession with fumigating clothes emerged. Homes, streets, and clothing were fumigated with pungent smoke from burning herbs. Incense, sulfur, or vinegar, all in a desperate attempt to cleanse the air of contagion. Clothes were aired out, beaten, and sometimes even subjected to intense heat, a rudimentary attempt at sterilization. The psychological impact was immense. The constant awareness of the plague's lethal power, the profound fear of contagion, spurred a desperate, often bizarre, search for new hygiene practices. It transformed the rituals of cleaning from a matter of mere comfort into a life-or-death imperative, driving ingenuity and desperate experimentation. These efforts, however misguided from a modern scientific perspective, represented a significant shift in medieval hygiene. They were born of terror, but they laid some of the earliest, tentative groundwork for understanding the link between environment, air quality, and health, albeit through a flawed miasma theory. Its story, told in every burning herb, whispered of desperate measures. The plague and its lessons were a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through smoky bathhouses, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where desperation sparked anew, if often futile, approaches to cleanliness. The mystery of bad smells. The mystery of bad smells was a pervasive, chilling reality. People think foul odors cause illness, a theory that shapes sanitation for centuries, transforming the unpleasant aromas of daily life into a perceived source of lethal contagion, and profoundly influencing public health practices in a world utterly devoid of modern understanding of microbes. Imagine the air, thick with the pervasive stench of fear, stale air, and the subtle, sickening aroma of disease, mingled with the pungent, cloying scent of strong herbs and acrid smoke. The sounds were no longer the mournful toll of plague bells. They included the low moans of the afflicted, the hushed whispers of terror, and the eerie silence of deserted streets. Fog rolling through deserted towns intensified the chilling atmosphere, shrouding the pervasive dread in a veil of profound collective anxiety. The prevailing medical theory of the Middle Ages, particularly in relation to epidemics, was the miasma theory. This theory posited that diseases, especially infectious ones, were caused by a miasma, a poisonous, corrupted form of air, characterized by its foul smell. It was believed that these noxious vapors rose from decaying organic matter, stagnant water, and human waste, and that inhaling them could directly cause illness. Listen to the low moans of the afflicted, their bodies racked by fever, their skin darkening with buboes, their breath ragged. Hear the hushed whispers of terror, traveling like wildfire through the town, as news of fresh death spread, confirming the presence of the invisible, malodorous killer. See the deserted streets, the empty market, the shuttered homes, now bathed in a pale, tentative sunlight, their silent presence a haunting testament to the devastation. People think foul odors cause illness, a theory that shapes sanitation for centuries. This belief profoundly influenced public health practices for centuries. Cities and towns, particularly after outbreaks of plague or other epidemics, would implement measures designed to combat foul odors. Streets might be cleaned by scattering aromatic herbs or burning fragrant woods and incense. Public spaces, deemed particularly noxious, might be avoided or fumigated. This understanding meant that efforts at sanitation were often misdirected. The focus was on masking or removing bad smells, rather than addressing the actual microbial causes of disease: contaminated water, human waste, rats, and fleas. Cleaning was performed to dispel the perceived miasma, not to kill bacteria or viruses. The psychological impact was immense. The constant presence of bad smells, the pervasive aromas of human waste, decay, and stagnant water fueled a deep-seated anxiety. Every foul odor was a potential harbinger of disease, a visible manifestation of unseen peril. This amplified the sense of profound helplessness, deepening the despair, transforming the entire urban environment into a perceived source of lethal contagion. The ubiquitous wood smoke from hearths, while irritating, ironically also provided a degree of practical fumigation, masking other, more dangerous aromas. The constant efforts to create perfume clouds with herbs and flowers were direct attempts to combat the perceived miasma. People think foul odors cause illness, a theory that shapes sanitation for centuries. The mystery of bad smells was a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through smoky bathhouses, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where every foul odor carried immense, unspoken peril. Rats, livestock, and shared space. Beyond the mystery of bad smells and the flawed miasma theory, medieval urban and rural life harbored another, more intimate source of constant peril: the pervasive proximity of humans and animals. Rats, livestock, and shared space were a chilling, inescapable reality. Animals live indoors through winter, leaving fleas, droppings, and worse, transforming the very home into a breeding ground for filth and disease, and underscoring the immense challenge of hygiene in a world utterly devoid of modern sanitation and pest control. Imagine the air inside your humble cottage, thick with the earthy scent of mud brick, stale wood smoke, and the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by the musky smell of livestock, the acrid scent of dung, and the faint, unsettling aroma of vermin. The sounds were no longer the low moans of the afflicted. They included the soft rustle of straw, the gentle breathing of a family, the rhythmic lowing of a cow, and the frantic scratching in the walls. Candlelit rafters filled with smoke, its haze diffused by the dim morning light, illuminated a world of profound, shared intimacy with its animals. For medieval peasants, particularly in winter, housing animals indoors was a pragmatic necessity. Their valuable livestock, a cow, a few sheep, goats, or pigs, represented a significant portion of their wealth, providing milk, wool, meat, and labor. Protecting them from the lethal cold, from predators, and from thieves was paramount. Thus, animals were often housed in an adjacent byre within the single-room cottage itself, or in a partitioned corner of the living space, ensuring their safety and maximizing the benefit of their body heat. Listen to the low, rhythmic breathing of the cow, its large body a massive, radiating furnace, its warm breath adding to the internal humidity of the cottage. Hear the gentle snuffling of the goats, their restless shifts on the straw, their occasional bleats quickly settling into a quiet contentedness. See the indistinct forms of the animals in the dim firelight, their bodies a warm, furry barrier against the cold that sought to penetrate the cottage walls. Animals live indoors through winter, leaving fleas, droppings, and worse. The immediate consequence of this shared space was a profound lack of hygiene. Animal dung and urine, inevitably, accumulated within the byre, adding to the pervasive stench of the home. This waste, coupled with spilled food and organic debris, created ideal breeding grounds for fleas, lice, and other parasites. Rats and mice, drawn by the presence of food and warmth, thrived in these conditions, scurrying through the straw, gnawing its stores, and acting as vectors for disease. And worse included the direct transmission of zoonotic diseases, illnesses spread from animals to humans. Tuberculosis, anthrax, various fevers, and parasitic infections could spread easily within such close, unsanitary confines. The constant proximity of human and animal bodies, their shared air, their shared parasites, ensured a relentless cycle of illness. The psychological impact was immense. The constant discomfort, the pervasive smells, the relentless itching from parasites, the knowledge of profound uncleanliness, these eroded mental fortitude, making every task harder, every moment of rest a battle. Yet crucially, this was an accepted reality, a necessary trade-off for the invaluable warmth and protection the animals provided in winter. Your family, huddled close, shared this grim reality. Their own struggles with illness and parasites were intertwined with the presence of their animals, an unspoken understanding of their common lot. Its story, alive in every crawl and low, whispered of an inescapable reality. Rats, livestock, and shared space was a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through dim cottages, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even home was a breeding ground for danger. Buboes, rashes, and medieval remedies. Buboes, rashes, and medieval remedies were a terrifying, pervasive truth. Vinegar, onions, leeches, prayer, all used to cure infections that hygiene could have prevented, transforming illness into a desperate, often agonizing, gamble, and underscoring the profound limits of medical knowledge in a world constantly besieged by disease. Imagine the air inside a cramped, dim hut, thick with wood smoke, old herbs, and the subtle tang of human suffering, now mingled with the sour smell of sickness, fermented vinegar, and profound fear. The sounds were no longer the frantic scratching of rats. They included the low moans of the afflicted, the hushed murmurs of worried family members, and the solemn voice of the village healer. Candlelit rafters filled with smoke, its haze diffused by the dim morning light, illuminated faces etched with weariness and profound anxiety. For the vast majority of medieval peasants, good health was a rare and fleeting luxury. Their lives were plagued by a constant barrage of ailments, both chronic and acute, born of their harsh living conditions, poor nutrition, lack of hygiene, and the complete absence of scientific understanding of disease. Wounds, however minor, easily became infected, and infections often turned systemic, proving lethal. Listen to the low moans of the afflicted, their bodies racked by fever, their skin disfigured, their breath ragged, their voices hoarse with suffering. Hear the hushed murmurs of worried family members, reciting ancient prayers, sharing quiet counsel. See the frightening manifestations of illness, the large, painful swellings, buboes, characteristic of plague, the inflamed skin, rashes of various infections, the festering sores, stark and horrifying in the dim light. Vinegar, onions, leeches, prayer, all used to cure infections that hygiene could have prevented. Without antibiotics or modern antiseptics, medieval remedies were a desperate, often gruesome, collection of practices. Vinegar, acidic and readily available, was used as a cleansing agent for wounds or applied in compresses. Onions, believed to have drawing or purifying properties, might be sliced and applied as poultices to boils or buboes. Leeches, a practice rooted in humoral theory to draw out bad blood, were widely used, often exacerbating weakness and contributing to infection. Various herbs, known for their antiseptic, pain-relieving, or anti-inflammatory properties, would be brewed into teas or crushed into poultices. And prayer, fervent and desperate, was a constant, fundamental part of every healing attempt, seeking divine intervention where human efforts failed. The cruel irony was that many of these infections could have been prevented by basic hygiene: clean water, sanitation, regular washing, pest control. But in a world devoid of such understanding, these remedies were all they had. Their efficacy limited, their application often agonizing. The psychological impact was immense. To suffer excruciating pain, to witness frightening bodily manifestations of disease, yet to be subjected to such desperate, often brutal remedies, amplified the terror of sickness. The pervasive lack of effective cures, the knowledge that recovery was often a matter of chance or divine whim, bred profound fear and helplessness. Your family, huddled close, shared this grim reality. Their own illnesses, their desperate remedies, their unwavering prayers were a shared burden, an unspoken understanding of their common lot. Vinegar, onions, leeches, prayer, all used to cure infections that hygiene could have prevented. Buboes, rashes, and medieval remedies were a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through smoky bathhouses, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where desperate cures often did more harm than good. Part 5, Night, Shame, and Survival. The Night Chamber Pot. As the medieval sun dipped below the horizon, plunging the village into a profound darkness and a pervasive sense of peril, the intimate realities of daily life continued, dictated by necessity, not comfort. The night chamber pot was a fundamental, unyielding reality. Every household keeps a pot under the bed, emptied into the street at dawn, transforming a basic biological need into a discreet yet pervasive ritual, underscoring the profound lack of sanitation, the constant threat of disease, and the quiet shame that defined nocturnal life in a world without modern plumbing. Imagine the air inside your cramped, dim hut, thick with wood smoke, damp earth, and the pervasive aromas of medieval life, now mingled with the subtle, acrid tang of human waste. The sounds were no longer the low moans of the afflicted. They included the soft rustle of straw beneath restless bodies, the low murmur of tired sleepers, and the profound, almost eerie silence that amplified these intimate moments. Candlelit rafters filled with smoke, its haze diffused by the dim morning light, illuminated a world where privacy was a luxury and discretion a necessity. For the vast majority of medieval peasants, whether in rural villages or crowded urban tenements, the concept of an indoor toilet or a flushing latrine was simply non-existent. Going outside in the absolute darkness, particularly in winter, with its lethal cold and lurking dangers, wild animals, thieves, unseen perils, was a perilous gamble. The solution, born of practicality and desperate necessity, was the chamber pot. Listen to the low murmur of tired sleepers, their bodies shifting on the straw, their small cries echoing in the dim, cold hut. Hear the soft rustle of blankets as a family member quietly slid the chamber pot from its place beneath the bed, its earthenware cool and smooth. See the indistinct forms in the dim light, moving with hushed discretion, performing a private act in a public space. Every household keeps a pot under the bed, emptied into the street at dawn. The chamber pot, typically a ceramic or wooden vessel, was an indispensable item in every medieval home. It was kept discreetly under the bed, ready for use during the long dark hours of the night. This allowed families to relieve themselves without venturing into the dangerous outside world, providing a crucial, if basic, form of nocturnal sanitation. But its contents were emptied into the street at dawn. With the first light, the pot would be carried outside, and its contents, night soil, unceremoniously emptied into the nearest gutter, cesspit, or simply onto the street. This crude method of waste disposal contributed immensely to the pervasive filth of medieval towns, fueling rampant disease and creating the foul odors that defined their existence. The psychological impact was immense. To perform such an intimate biological function in a shared space, even with discretion, eroded personal privacy. The constant awareness of the chamber pot's presence, its contents, and its eventual public disposal bred a quiet shame, a profound resignation to a reality that offered no true cleanliness or personal space. The smell of night soil, though briefly contained, was a pervasive aroma that mingled with all other daily odors, defining the medieval urban environment. Its presence underscored the profound lack of sanitation, the brutal proximity of life and death, and the relentless realities of their existence. Its story, told in every quiet emptying, whispered of an inescapable reality. The night chamber pot was a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through dim cottages, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even nature's call held immense, unspoken peril. Secrets of the Privy. Secrets of the Privy were a chilling, pervasive reality. A hole, a plank, and a pile of straw. Privacy limited, danger constant, transforming a fundamental bodily need into a precarious, often hazardous, act, and underscoring the profound lack of sanitation, the constant threat of disease, and the quiet indignity that defined daily life in a world utterly devoid of modern plumbing. Imagine the air outside a humble cottage, crisp and cold, thick with the earthy scent of damp earth, decaying waste, and the pervasive aroma of wood smoke, mingling with the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the low murmur of tired sleepers. They included the rustle of straw, the gentle creak of a wooden plank, and the profound, almost eerie silence that amplified these intimate moments. Candlelit rafters filled with smoke, its haze diffused by the dim morning light, illuminated a world where privacy was a luxury and discretion a necessity. The privy, a simple outdoor latrine, was a common feature of many medieval peasant homes and smaller urban dwellings. It consisted of a small, separate shed, or sometimes just a crude structure built against the side of the house, enclosing a pit dug into the earth. Its purpose was to offer a designated space for relieving oneself, away from the immediate living quarters. Listen to the soft rustle of straw as a family member carefully lifted the lid, if any, of the privy seat. Hear the gentle creak of the wooden plank, its surface worn smooth by countless uses. See the dark, unassuming structure, its walls often crude wood or wattle and daub, offering scant protection from the elements, its interior dim and often frigid. A hole, a plank, and a pile of straw. Privacy limited, danger constant. The design was basic. A hole dug into the ground, over which a wooden plank was laid, serving as a seat. A pile of straw, leaves, or moss might be kept nearby for wiping. This rudimentary structure offered a degree of privacy, a small concession to personal dignity, but it was far from ideal. Privacy was limited. The walls, often thin and poorly constructed, offered little soundproofing or visual barrier. The smell, particularly in warmer months, was pervasive and inescapable, and the dangers were constant. Venturing outside at night, especially in winter with its lethal cold and lurking predators, wild animals, thieves, was a perilous gamble. The path to the privy, often unlit, could be treacherous. The pit below, left to accumulate waste, was a constant source of contamination. Flies, drawn to the pervasive filth, spread pathogens widely. The contents could overflow, polluting the surrounding soil and water sources. This crude method of waste disposal contributed immensely to the unsanitary conditions of medieval life, fueling rampant disease. The psychological impact was immense. The constant awareness of the privy's limitations, the profound lack of true sanitation, the pervasive smells, and the constant fear of nocturnal dangers eroded personal dignity. It bred a quiet shame, a profound resignation to a reality that offered no true cleanliness or personal space. Your family, huddled close, shared this grim reality. Their own rituals of using the privy, their acceptance of its primitive nature, was a shared burden, an unspoken understanding of their common lot. Its story, told in every whispered visit, spoke of an inescapable reality. Secrets of the Privy was a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through dim cottages, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth, and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even nature's call held immense unspoken peril. Bathing before feasts, beyond the primitive privies and the ubiquitous chamber pots, medieval life, for all its pervasive filth, sometimes offered a glimpse of more deliberate, if infrequent, cleansing rituals. Bathing before feasts was a profound symbolic act. Before weddings, festivals, or confessions, people scrubbed themselves with herbs and cold water, transforming a mundane act into a meticulous ritual of purification, underscoring the deep connection between cleanliness, piety, and social respectability in a world where true hygiene was a luxury and spiritual cleansing was paramount. Imagine the air inside a humble cottage, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, damp earth, and the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by the crisp, clean scent of fresh herbs and cold water. The sounds were no longer the low murmur of tired sleepers. They included the gentle splash of water, the soft rub of coarse cloths, and the hushed murmurs of anticipation. Candlelit rafters filled with smoke, its haze diffused by the dim morning light. Illuminated faces etched with weariness, but softened by profound anticipation. For the vast majority of medieval peasants, daily full-body washing was an impossibility. Water was precious, fuel for heating it scarce, and soap a luxury. However, specific occasions, particularly important religious festivals, social gatherings, weddings, or before making confession, demanded a higher degree of cleanliness, however rudimentary. Listen to the gentle splash of cold water as it was poured from a wooden bucket into a tub. Listen to the gentle splash of cold water as it was poured from a wooden bucket into a tub or a large basin, its frigid touch a shocking, invigorating cleanse. Hear the soft rub of coarse cloths against skin, the rhythmic scrubbing of hands, as family members meticulously cleaned themselves or assisted others. See the herbs, fresh or dried, carefully crushed and added to the water, their potent aromas filling the cramped room. Before weddings, festivals, or confessions, people scrubbed themselves with herbs and cold water. These were moments of deliberate, focused purification. For a wedding, bride and groom would be ritually washed, preparing them for the sacred union. Before major festivals, families would engage in a more thorough cleanse, shedding some of the accumulated grime of daily life. And crucially, before confession, which required spiritual purity, a more thorough bodily washing was often performed, both symbolically and practically. Herbs played a vital role. Rosemary, lavender, mint, sage, these aromatic plants, often with antiseptic properties, would be crushed and added to the cold water. Their pungent fragrance helped to mask body odors, but they were also believed to have purifying qualities, both physical and spiritual. The cold water itself, invigorating and shocking, was believed to close the pores, in line with prevailing medical theories, preventing the entry of disease, and to physically cleanse the skin. The psychological impact was immense. The act of scrubbing away grime, however temporarily, offered a profound sense of psychological cleansing. It prepared individuals not just physically, but spiritually and socially for the important occasion. It fostered a sense of personal dignity, a feeling of being presentable in the eyes of God, the clergy, and their community. The shame of pervasive filth was momentarily mitigated by these rituals, transforming discomfort into a profound act of self-care and social conformity. Its story, told in every scrub and splash, whispered of a determined effort for cleanliness. Bathing before feasts was a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through smoky bathhouses, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where even intermittent cleanliness held immense, unspoken power and spiritual significance. Where even intermittent cleanliness held immense, unspoken power and spiritual significance. Judging cleanliness. Judging cleanliness was a constant, terrifying reality. You are judged not by how clean you are, but how clean you appear in the eyes of neighbors and clergy, transforming personal cleanliness into a performative act of social conformity, and instilling a profound, pervasive fear of public disgrace that dictated every interaction, every presentation, and shaped the very fabric of communal perception. Imagine the air inside a bustling church or marketplace, thick with the mingled sense of human presence, wood smoke, and the subtle aroma of various herbs, now permeated by the sharp tang of unspoken judgment. The sounds were no longer the gentle splash of bath water. They included the low murmur of hushed gossip, the rustle of woolen cloaks, and the authoritative voice of the priest. Candlelit rafters filled with smoke, its haze diffused by the dim morning light, illuminated faces acutely aware of the scrutiny they faced. For medieval peasants, true cleanliness, by modern standards, was unattainable. Pervasive filth, lack of water, absence of soap, and constant exposure to unsanitary conditions meant that everyone, to some degree, was perpetually unclean. However, society still maintained a strong desire for order, for respectability, and for a visible adherence to social and religious norms. Listen to the low murmur of hushed gossip, traveling like wildfire through the marketplace, commenting on a neighbor's appearance, a particularly grimy tunic, a noticeable smell, an unkempt head of hair. Hear the authoritative voice of the priest in his sermon, subtly or overtly, condemning sloth and poor presentation as signs of spiritual laxity. See the faces of villagers, their expressions carefully composed, their eyes subtly assessing, perpetually judging the visible markers of cleanliness in others. You are judged not by how clean you are, but how clean you appear in the eyes of neighbors and clergy. This was the core of the unspoken rule. Since absolute cleanliness was impossible, what truly mattered was the performance of cleanliness, the visible effort to appear respectable. A clean outer cloak, a carefully combed, if still lice-ridden, head of hair, a fresh application of fragrant herbs to mask body odors, diligently washed hands before meals. These were the outward signs that conveyed an adherence to social and religious norms. The clergy, deeply concerned with moral purity, often linked cleanliness with godliness. A tidy appearance, a presentable demeanor, was seen as a sign of spiritual diligence, while slovenliness could be interpreted as laziness, sin, or even moral depravity. The fear of clerical judgment was a powerful motivator, driving peasants to maintain at least a superficial appearance of cleanliness. The psychological impact was immense. The constant awareness of being judged, of living perpetually under the scrutiny of one's neighbors and the watchful eye of the clergy, created a pervasive tension. It forced individuals to maintain a meticulous, if often superficial, presentation of cleanliness, even when their underlying reality was one of profound filth. This rule was more than just a social convention. It was a powerful marker of their social hierarchy and spiritual anxieties. It reinforced the importance of reputation, of adhering to community standards, and of conforming to the invisible hand of ancient order. Your neighbors judge every step you take, every word you speak. Judging cleanliness was a profound reality of medieval hygiene, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey through dim cottages, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, where outward appearances held immense, unspoken power, and every presentation was a public trial. The myth of medieval dirt. As the sun finally set on another medieval day, casting long shadows across the cobblestone streets and illuminating the quiet shame of a world without modern hygiene, a final, profound truth emerges from the historical record. The myth of medieval dirt challenges our modern assumptions. Behind the pervasive filth lies a world doing its best to stay clean with almost no resources and far more knowledge than history gives credit for, transforming what appears to be a simple tale of squalor into a nuanced understanding of human ingenuity, resilience, and the relentless, often unseen, battle for cleanliness against overwhelming odds. Imagine the air, cool and still, thick with the subtle scent of old stone, damp earth, and the pervasive aroma of wood smoke, mingled with the faint tang of herbs and human presence. The sounds are no longer the low murmur of whispered judgments. They include the soft crackle of a dwindling fire, the gentle breathing of a family, and the profound, almost eerie silence that settles over a village. Candlelit rafters filled with smoke, its haze diffused by the dim morning light, illuminate a world that, despite its challenges, actively strived for cleanliness. Our modern perception of medieval hygiene is often shaped by images of extreme squalor, open sewers, unwashed bodies, pervasive disease. And while these realities were indeed present and brutal, they often overshadow the nuanced efforts medieval people made to maintain cleanliness within the severe constraints of their era. Listen to the faint echo of wooden buckets against stone, collecting precious water for daily rituals, however rudimentary. Hear the low murmur of a mother, carefully cleaning her child with cold water and herbs. Despite the absence of soap, see the well-worn scrubbing stones by the river, a testament to countless hours of arduous laundry, a physical declaration of their relentless struggle against grime. Behind the pervasive filth lies a world doing its best to stay clean with almost no resources and far more knowledge than history gives credit for. Medieval people, despite lacking a germ theory, understood the connection between dirt, foul smells, and illness, miasma theory. This led to proactive, if sometimes misguided, efforts, cleaning streets with brooms, using strong-smelling herbs and fumigation to cleanse the air, meticulously washing hands and feet, and even building public bathhouses, though these later declined. They used what they had: abundant water, often cold and untreated, harsh lye soap, abrasive sand, vinegar, and a vast array of aromatic and antiseptic herbs. Their knowledge of these natural resources, passed down through generations of healers, midwives, and household managers, was extensive and practical, representing centuries of empirical observation. The psychological impact was immense. The constant struggle, the lack of modern tools, the pervasive environment of filth, these fostered a deep resilience, a pragmatic acceptance of their reality, and an unwavering commitment to making the best of what little they had. Their efforts, however limited, were profound acts of defiance against an overwhelming adversary. This re-evaluation challenges our simplistic view of medieval life, revealing a complex picture of adaptation. It reminds us that people in the past were not simply ignorant or dirty. They were ingenious, resourceful, and deeply concerned with their well-being, striving for cleanliness within the brutal confines of their time. Behind the pervasive filth lies a world doing its best to stay clean with almost no resources and far more knowledge than history gives credit for. The myth of medieval dirt is a profound, unsettling truth, transforming a seemingly simple tale of squalor into a nuanced understanding of human ingenuity. It is a calm, immersive journey through dim cottages, charting the strange rituals that kept people barely clean, forever tethered to the relentless assault of pervasive filth and the quiet shame of a world without basic hygiene, yet illuminated by the enduring strength of their profound, humble, and often unseen efforts to maintain cleanliness. A constant reminder that history's whispers often hide the most unexpected truths. When the last ember in the hearth dims, and the cottage settles into its familiar darkness, you begin to understand something the people of the Middle Ages carried with them always, that cleanliness was not a state of being, but a constant struggle, a negotiation with nature, with scarcity, and with beliefs shaped by fear as much as by wisdom. Long before running water, before soap-lined shelves, before a warm bath was something anyone could expect, there were men and women waking each day to a world where dirt was not the enemy, but the companion they never quite escaped. They rose from beds alive with tiny crawling things, shook out wool garments that held every scent of the season, splashed cold water onto tired faces, and called it enough. Not out of laziness, but because survival demanded time, and time rarely allowed more. And yet, beneath the filth we imagine, there was a kind of logic, a quiet understanding of herbs, ashes, smoke, and the strange language of aromas, a rhythm of washing feet, scrubbing linens with sand, and praying that illness stayed far from the door. Even the shame we might assume they felt was softer than we expect, for in their eyes, cleanliness was not perfection, but effort, not sparkling skin, but doing the best one could with cold rivers, wooden buckets, and the fear that too much warm water might invite sickness. And maybe that is the lesson their world leaves behind. That hygiene is not a measure of worth, not a luxury guaranteed, but a fragile achievement, built from whatever a person has, be it herbs, smoke, or simple endurance. So rest now. Let the river water grow still. Let the bathhouses fade into mist. Let the night swallow the scents of peat, wool, and ancient earth. You have walked in imagination through a world that did not smell clean, but tried desperately to survive with the little it had. Sleep well tonight, knowing you carry a bit of their resilience, their ingenuity, and their quiet acceptance into your own gentle dreams. Good night, and may the soft hush of medieval nights settle around you like calm, earthy air as you drift into peaceful sleep